If he doesn't show up, do I have a volunteer from this group? Okay. All right. Thank you. It'll be up. Yes. Oh, there we go. There's some.
Good to see you, partner. Doing good?
Squirrel.
That's one advantage of keeping this guy in my car.
It's true.
I think so. I think so.
Oh, yes.
Is that coffee meant for us?
I don't know. Julie, do you know? Julie.
Yeah.
Mark was asking if the coffee was meant for us.
I'm not sure. I'll ask.
All right.
This is past flag.
You let me know when you're ready to get started. Okay. I'm gonna go find my glass. Oh, they're on my head.
Hello.
Can I welcome everybody and then introduce her, or do you want her to just repeat? Okay, all right.
Ah, okay. Can you spell your last name for me?
Reibenkamp.
All right.
Carrie is the president and director. And your counterpart in county is a guy named
Dave Schroeder.
Dave Schroeder. I was
Yes.
thinking Dave Schneider, and I was like, no, I don't think it's Schneider.
Hi, Kurt. Nice to meet you.
Are you still the chair of the school board?
Good luck in November. All right, you are ready for me to start? All right. We're live. Good place here. All right, I don't have the bell today. Let's go ahead and get started. So I want to welcome you to the Rotary Club of Florence, serving all Boone County. Gary is going to do the prayer pledge and the four-way test for us.
Let's pray. Father God, we come before you to give you thanks for another day that you allow us to serve you. Father, we're grateful for this organization we're here today. Up to you, what you're doing, bless them. Very special way. Father, we pray for the world situation, all the strife going on. Pray for peace, but we just pray that Father, we thank you for this day.
Amen.
Amen.
Oh, wait, yes.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Four-way, no, there it is, the four-way test. One.
Is it the truth?
Two.
Is it fair to all concerned?
3,
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
and 4.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Good job.
All right, thank you, Gary. I have a few announcements for you. World Polio Day is October 24th. Don't forget to order your Rotary shirt from Dave Wolfer. If you need his email address, let me know. You can email him. New Perceptions is our third quarter community service partner. And don't forget to invite friends and colleagues to our meeting. And we do have, yes, sir.
Just was gonna announce,
Yeah.
Sean's not here, we're screening camp, so I haven't seen you all in a month or so. It's been
Mhm.
working here at Sun in this way. But I am here today. Thanks for taking me 5 minutes from my office. Kurt Green Camp is the Assistant County Treasurer for Kent County. I said, I'm getting ready to step out the Rotary. Because what's that? Well, here he is. So he came along with us. And I just wanted to send him a Rotary welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Julie, are you introducing our speaker? All right, I'm going to turn it over to Julie to introduce our speaker. Oh, yes.
So today we are down in this beautiful facility. How many years ago?
14,
14 years ago.
7.
To help with the fundraising population. That's probably one of our most vulnerable. So Ken is going to walk us through the shelter, the history of the shelter, and very necessary services that they provide. He is a leader in the community. She's a leader back. I have the utmost respect for him. Good friend, very good friend. Learned a lot about things that we can do to help support the mission. My good friend, Kim.
Thanks. On behalf of the entire Emergency Shelter Northern Kentucky Mission and our staff and our guests we serve, we want to welcome you to our brand new state-of-the-art facility. This facility was a project that started way back in 2008 when we moved into the location at Scott Street. So I joined the shelter in 2015 and to elevate and get us finally moved and that entire process that occurred. So the shelter, our mission is to provide immediate low barrier entrance shelter and services to adults in our community experiencing homelessness. And we believe that by providing a bed it is the first step toward recovery, whatever that looks like for the individual, whether that is to self-resolve, whether that is needing supportive services, or even intensive case management services. So the shelter started in 2018. I was fortunate enough to move into that building on Scott Street because of the judge executive, Ralph Dries, at that time. The shelter was operating out of a church basement, not successfully. There was a lot of issues over there. The county recognized that they had a vacant building, which was the old Dressman Health Center on Scott Street, and moved the shelter in the winter of 2008. So we are celebrating our 15th. We'll be kicking off our 15th winter shelter. The shelter started just doing low barrier immediate entrance winter shelter, the cold shelter. We continue to be the only cold shelter in our community. We're also low barrier, and low barrier to us means that we're not asking you to come ahead of time and do assessment, to screen, to do any of those things. We're going to allow you to show up at the door if you're an adult, and we're going to try to put you in a bed and keep you safe, right? And allow you the ability to not worry about where you're going to sleep that night in hopes that you can be ready to take next steps, or like I said, self-resolve, meaning you find your own solution to this. So the cold shelter started for adult men and women on Scott Street. We did a whole lot in that 5,000 square foot building that was never designed to shelter human beings. At its highest point, we had 122 people at one night in that building. We had one shower that was not handicap accessible. We had a staff bathroom we shared with the women that sheltered with us at night in the winter. We had 2 men's toilets, and we had no kitchen. So we did a whole lot. We were known as the place that everybody could come to. So even our rule of thumb in winter back then was 75 beds above freezing, and we'll work hard to not turn an adult away. Our law enforcement relied on us. Our healthcare system in Kentucky relied on us to be able to discharge someone or law enforcement to bring them directly to the door. We believe that a better option than going to jail or hospital is to come to a shelter. And so we always operated into that. So in 2010, we also winter shelter then went from November to March. In 2010, we recognized that there needed to be beds for men who were serious about going homeless to housed. So we called them our work program beds. These were beds that ran in our summer months from May to November. These allowed men to have the same bed during the course of their programs. They could save money, get housing, they would work, we would do all those things with them. So that started in 2010. We actually continued those work program beds into winter. We just didn't really talk about it, we just did the work. In 2013, 14, somewhere in there, we also recognized that we had people that were living in substandard housing or had no access to a shower or laundry. So we started to open up our doors and allowed guests to come in during our summer months from May to November, take a shower with the one we had. We would launder up to 2 outfits per person, but that program was really designed to stay connected to folks. Stability is key to help anybody that is in crisis. If we look around our community across the nation, when we're faced with a horrific tragedy, what is the first question that always has to be answered? Where am I going to sleep tonight? And we have always operated in that space. So we did summer shower and laundry program. At one point, one summer, we did 1,700 showers, 20 hours a week for those 5 months from May to November, and laundered roughly 17,000 pieces of clothing. In the state of Kentucky, someone who accesses a shelter can use our address as their own. And that is beneficial, right? I mean, when we talk about an economic impact and a workforce issue, people need the ability to get an ID. So the state of Kentucky allows for individuals to access a shelter, use their address as their own. You cannot get a PO box without an address. You can't get a job without an address. You can't file, you can't do anything, get a social security card, birth certificate, anything without an address. The real key thing here is the fact that when you look around our community, there are no other shelters, right? And so how do we make an impact directly with the economic side of this? You give them the use of the address. We have a business address that we use at the post office, and our guests use our street address. So fast forward, 2013, Leadership Northern Kentucky class ran a capital campaign. The move and the build of a new building was supposed to have been temporary at Scott Street. That was supposed to have been a temporary location for us. Clearly, and this is where everybody can laugh, my definition of temporary is not 14 years, but I digress. So we went through a capital campaign in 2013 and pledged about $750,000. So we had the money and we began to look. And there is a concept called NIMBY. Is anybody familiar with that? Not in my backyard. Love what you do, but not in my backyard. And so how do you overcome moving a shelter, knowing we were sitting on prime real estate, knowing the need was growing? You have to have political will or a catastrophic event. And so the political will came in again with the ongoing support with Kenton County and the judge executive and the commissioners this year. It also required the help of Guerin, Colvin, and St. Elizabeth to help us finally move off of Scott Street. So we began the construction and build of this and the renovation. But to get to this point, it required zoning, It required an ordinance, a shelter permit, and things like that. Because zoning excludes shelters in a lot of communities. So you either need text amendments, you need to do all that. One of the things that can happen on a political basis is just to identify pockets in the community where shelters could be, right? I also want to talk about, so we moved in here, we began this build, this 10,000 square foot, doubled our square footage from what we had at Scott Street. We went from having those beds, and then during the course of COVID and the reduction in occupancy because of square footage, there's a lot of stuff you can Google all of it. I choose to not revisit it. We had at Scott Street 24 beds. So we, during the course of COVID, shut our Scott Street location down in March. I called Judge Knockelman and said, I have a crazy idea. We need to finish out winter. Can we use the convention center? Gretchen Landrum at the convention center agreed. Then all of our partners stepped in to help us finish winter there. The winter after that, we were at the restricted custody facility in Campbell County. Judge Pendry, we were facing 12 emergency shelter beds for all of Northern Kentucky in our Scott Street location. Judge Pendry and jailer Jim Daly called me and said, I have a crazy idea. And I go, I know how this conversation goes. And then we ended up moving our winter shelter overnight operations to the restricted custody facility for an entire winter. I joked that winter, December 15th, we did our ground breaking here. We put shovels in the ground here. That night, we moved our entire overnight operations to the restricted custody facility. Very challenging, but all done for all the right reasons. In this building, we're going to have staff give you an opportunity to walk around and take a tour. Some of the things that were very thoughtful. This is a $2.7 million project, with the exception of $450,000 from Kenton County. It is all privately funded. The operating budget in this building is about $1.3 million. This year, we're back to being about 92% privately funded. We receive a small amount of funding from the fiscal courts, Boone, Campbell, and Kenton. I think it's important to note that those fiscal court dollars are very important to us. However, you actually have to see the client with the last known address from those areas to get the funding. So in this building, we have 68 beds. This allowed us for the first time to go year-round emergency sheltering for men. So 68 beds for that. 16 work program beds that go year-round for men to allow them to continue to work and have housing, work a third shift job, sleep during the day, because we have some in the building doing that right now. It allowed us to continue our winter cold shelter that starts November 1. We will add women into the building then. It also, we're under contract with mental health court for diversion. We believe, and with the support of a regional mental health court, we allow 2 individuals, up 2 or more in here, so they can avoid jail, or they need a place to land coming out of jail. So the other thing we added was this beautiful space called the Daytime Navigation Engagement Center. The DNEC, where you're sitting right now, is something that we did not have at Scott Street, right? It has tables for one. So if you ever visited Scott Street, our guests always ate with food in their laps. So we actually have tables. We have tables for 35 folks. We also have 3 computer workstations in the back that allows the guests that when they're in the building, they can utilize that. The Daytime Navigation Engagement Center is designed out of success that happened out west in this concept of if you open up the space and allow providers to come in, you increase participation in services. So we actually have 2 community partner rooms that are in the back here, that allow our partners to actually come on site and meet a client. We can do it virtually. They can do it in person. We currently have, 17 partners that are coming in. So legal aid, North Key, mental health services, case management, all of our managed care organizations come. They meet our clients where they're at and connect them to services. We also have a full service kitchen right now, which is really great. We're excited about this. This is one of our most popular things. We have 8 showers in this building, 2 on this side for the women, 6 on this side for the guys. At Scott Street, we did not have a secure courtyard. We had that parking lot that belonged to the city. So we actually have a secure courtyard. The other thing we did in 2018 was pilot on-site medical. It was clear that when you're in a close space and you're putting a lot of people in, if one person is sick, everybody's sick. And it would bother me that I would leave here, and my staff gets tired of me telling this story. It would bother me that I could leave shelter and go home and take Tylenol, cough drops, cough medicine, cold medicine. And we could not hand that out to a guest in this building. So every time a guest did, we call them guests when they come in the building. Every time a guest said, I don't feel good, we called an ambulance. So that did not make other people in our community happy because we had a large amount of ambulance runs for that very reason. So we piloted on-site medical, received grants. Benefit to being privately funded is you can turn things around on a dime. You don't have to plan and get in the funding cycle for things. You can quickly identify need, and that is the role of a good emergency shelter, a low barrier immediate entrance. So we piloted on-site medical. In a partnership, we funded St. Elizabeth. We dropped a business health model into the clinic at Scott Street, into an office really. And I think in 57 days, there were 1,700 clinic visits, roughly 3.5 hours a night. So we're making sure that we put a clinic in this building was paramount for the health, not only of the guests we serve, but of the staff, because I need them to come to work. They're all fabulous and amazing people. They have the hardest job. They make my job so much easier to talk about the work that we do in our community. So the on-site health clinic, actually, you may have seen, we did a partnership with UK College of Medicine students at the NKU branch. They were looking to do and mimic what the UK students, College of Medicine students do in Lexington at Salvation Army in Lexington. So they actually operate, inventory, run a clinic out of here 2 nights a week. So this gives our 1st through 4th year medical students hands-on experience under the supervision of a resident and attending that volunteer their time. It is a really amazing experience for these students to hear their feedback and learn about taking care of a very underserved population. We also have a advanced practitioner RN that is, we're grant funding under contract with St. Elizabeth Business Health that is in here 4 nights a week. So we have seen a reduction in our ambulance runs. We've seen an increase in our health of our staff and our guests. So that is really like the broad basis. What I would like to also talk about is one of the questions that comes up is, why don't you emergency shelter women all year round, Kim? I mean, women, they're women. And the reality of that situation is across the nation, 2/3 of the population experiencing homelessness is a single adult, and 70% of them are men. They are the underserved, they are the largest population, and they are the forgotten ones. We look at the men as opportunities for economic development, for workforce development, I should say, to be in the workforce. This is an area, this is a captive audience that want to work if they physically can work. So that is why we have the women at night in the building. Women can come to during daytime services all year round. We simply have them at night in the building with us. Last winter, from November to June 30th, we saw 672 adults in this building that spent at least 1 night of shelter. Over 10,000 nights of sheltering to them. Now, granted, we were there in November till we moved here in February. We had 24 beds at Scott Street. We also did about 29 days of overflow at Mother of God in their basement. So that is an astronomical number. I would like to put out there, because there's this narrative right now that people come to the urban core, right? That they're coming here to shelter, right? What percentage of those 672 adults actually think made it from Boone County? Julie may don't answer because. Any guesses? 572 adults. What percentage of them actually had a last known address of Boone and came here to shelter? 5%. 5%. So again, transportation, people don't want to come down here. Their support and their success happens in their community. They're not coming here. Campbell is about 7%, and they're just right over the river. So we do see a lot of folks from Hamilton County. I do want to address this because there's a narrative that we see a lot of folks from Hamilton County. And you're right, we do. We also send far more over the river for services we do not provide in our community. If a woman needs emergency sheltering and the bed is full and waitlisted at another agency, we're sending over the river. If you have a family that needs immediate shelter at night, we're sending over the river. If you have a dad with kids, we're sending them to the brand new facility at Bethany House. So we do send folks because for services we do not offer here in our community, there is a gap. I also want to talk about low barrier sheltering. That means if you can come in on your own 2 feet, we're going to shelter you. We don't exclude you if you're drunk, high, not taking your meds, have a legal background. The mission is simply to give you the bed, treat you with compassion, respect, and dignity, and then help you resolve whatever that looks like. There is a misnomer out there. Any guesses the number one reason someone is homeless? What starts it for somebody? Addiction? No. Loss of a job, number one reason. When you can no longer afford to pay when you've lost your job and can no longer afford to pay your bills, that begins a spiral. And we see it happening now. We see people calling us who said, I never thought I'd be in this situation. I had a good job. I lost my job because of the COVID. There are a variety of reasons. Loss of a job, health condition, a relationship status. We women can kick the men out in high fashion, and that we see a lot of men who have had a relationship change. The fastest growing population coming to us, and we've already seen it starting. Any guesses? I like Q&A. Any guesses the fastest growing population coming into homelessness right now? We're seeing our numbers start going and have tried. No. People have been evicted. Yeah, kind of. Our senior citizens are showing up at our doors with a host of medical needs and mobility issues simply because they can no longer afford to pay their rent. They're not addicts. They may have some mental health issues. They simply can no longer afford to pay their rent. As we look in our community about what's happening in Newport with Victoria Square, 2/3 of the population over there were not on subsidized housing. They had simply found affordable housing, meaning they had found places to live that they paid less than 30% of their income on rent. So what ends homelessness? Housing, affordable housing, something that someone pays less than 30% of their income on rent. And that is the struggle right now. That's what we're seeing. That's what we're learning. We do see folks that have been chronically homeless, but they make up maybe 10% of the entire homeless population. You know, this is about awareness raising and the opportunity to educate this as well. If you've heard me talk before, and some of you have, in the state of Kentucky, our Constitution requires a taxpayer-funded animal shelter in every county. There is no such statutes for human beings in our community. When we look at the floods, we have people that are living in state parks and tents and trailers, do not have stable housing. We look at homelessness. We don't look at homelessness the way that we look at other scenarios, but it's all centered around the same thing. You have to have a bed to sleep in at night. Otherwise, you have a growing unsheltered population, and you start seeing more and more of that in the community, which is what exactly we're seeing. More and more folks sleeping outside because they do not have a bed to get into. So any other questions for me? And then you guys can tour and walk around.
Does the population of your guests mirror the
So Northern Kentucky as a whole is what, 90% Caucasian and 10% African American. We have diversity on our staff, so we're seeing an increase in our African American population. So we mirror, for the most part, historically, we have mirrored what our community's demographics are. Good question. Yes.
So tell me about your annual fund, how you raise the money on an annual basis, primarily for private contributions.
We do, yeah. So we do one event called Homeless to Hopeful. We do that in March every year. We also do we do appeals, summer appeals and winter appeals. We write grants. Grants are kind of interesting because a lot of grants will fund this table, but will not fund the lights to keep on the building or fund my amazing staff. That's kind of the overhead myth in fundraising. We are held to some scrutiny that other businesses are not held to. So a good example is like, we get asked sometimes, what's your admin cost? I think currently about almost 87% of that 1.3 is all on staff. And we don't have benefits here. So I'll throw that out there as well, right? But if you go to a restaurant, no one's asking the restaurant how much you're spending on the printing of your menus, what your staff costs are, those kind of things. So we're always looking for ways to raise money to keep what we deem to be and what our community needs is a crucial piece of the crisis response system. The men sitting in our beds are being case managed by other agencies waiting on housing. So we have all this housing dollars in the state and across the nation that no one is able to use because we don't have housing. Our landlords are leaving, right? They went through a tremendous upheaval during COVID. We have a lot of out-of-state landlords coming in and buying properties, and we have people increasing rents, our landlords. And so it is really challenging to really understand and why we want to stay privately funded. So some things, our state of Kentucky Housing Corporation manages the homeless and housing funds for 118 of the 120 counties. And so they get to determine what the priorities are of what the state needs. And this is kind of starting to really get in the weeds. A lot of those decisions are made on a point in time count. And if many of you have heard the point in time count, it's a one-night snapshot of who's experiencing homelessness in your community, which is easy when you can count who's sleeping in a bed in a shelter, but you have to find them to count them in the other communities. So to the point of the work is cut out for them. And Boone is doing a lot of great work in this area in terms of doing Boone count, a B count, trying to find folks and what to do with them, and then still doing some hoteling this winter on a white flag basis. So we're proud of the work we do. We've been at this this is our 15th year. We have a lot of places that come in to see how we do low barrier sheltering and walk away going, man, this is not as hard as what I thought it was. This is a community of caring. This is about community living. This is about the guests that we shelter know that if they're not sheltering with us, they're not sheltering anywhere in Northern Kentucky. So our job is to keep folks that are vulnerable, that are not have not yet met a federal definition of homelessness to be eligible for services elsewhere. So.
The hardest homeless person. I understand.
Mhm.
How do you get to that person? How do you?
So you can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. I mean, unless they're facing a serious mental health crisis, and that is really hard to establish with law enforcement, that someone is really at risk to do a mandatory 72-hour hold. You really just have to provide the supports until they're ready to make that decision. And that's what we try to do. The best housing right now to get into, the easiest housing, is actually our sober living housing. You could quickly get into, if you're going to agree to the urine test and a drug test on a weekly basis, you can get into sober living housing at roughly $100 a week. And there's some element that sober living is far more successful in that approach, because in homelessness, when you get a housing voucher or a subsidized voucher, you tend to be living alone, and that may not be a good match. So that is where we're finding our success, honestly. Our work program guys, of the 44, I think, or of the 44 we had from November to March, we really didn't start them till February though. 39% of them, I think, got housing, and probably more than 2/3 went into private market. So, you know, this idea that these housing vouchers are going to solve things don't work if there's no landlord willing to take the voucher. And that's an issue. And so some of the things that we're going to start seeing is what are we going to do with these folks? Because there's a whole legal side of this as well, that the 9th District Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court out west issued this and says you cannot criminalize someone for sleeping outside without adequate and accessible shelter space. And so what is considered adequate and accessible? And if we go down that road and we're going to arrest folks for sleeping outside, then that kind of opens up a can of worms. It opens up Pandora's box, which in Cincinnati, when they had the big river, I mean, everybody remember, I think they had the row of tents that made the national news. The city really just decided they were willing to invest in housing and homeless services rather than get sued all the time. So here in Covington, the city was sued several years ago before I ever started for throwing away belongings. And so they're required to give a 72-hour notice before they empty an encampment. So there's a legal component here that we'd all probably really like to avoid. I mean, we'd rather have people in beds. I'd really like to see other counties step up and do a piece of this in their counties, knowing that they're not coming here. So, any other questions for me? So, two things. One is the work program, we tell them they have 190 days, I think is it. So you really need to save about $3,300 right now to even consider housing, because you have to have an application fee and all those things. So we give them a goal of 190 days. Do we extend? Absolutely, because it's all timing. Could have housing, could have, you could find housing but not have the money. We can try to help support that piece of it. You know, there's also transportation. You got to have the housing and this transportation and the job all close so someone could be successful. On the emergency shelter side, our shelter permit has a limit, but there's also just cause. And so when someone has a break in service, maybe they don't come in one night and then they're out for 7 days and they come back, that will constitute the break of service. But we are seeing our length of stays get longer. And the other thing, when we talk about entrance to emergency shelter, so we operate first come, first serve. We are night by night emergency shelter. We prioritize those with physical Kentucky IDs because the beds are so limited. And then we will do first come, first serve for all the open beds. As we start, and we have the women in this building, we'll have 16 women over here, beds tied up. They may never be full. They were, I think, maybe 3 days from February to March. Were they ever full, Chris? Yeah. So women are more likely to find housing, you know, somewhere else and stuff. We will have on that takes us down. I'm going to have to help me out with my mouth. We'll go 68. We'll divide deduct 16, that's 52 beds. Take out 2 for mental health court, that takes us to 50. Take out 16 work program because we love putting men back into the workforce and getting them housed. That takes us to 34 emergency shelter men's beds. And we have, we've been turning folks away all the time. The minute we moved in, we were turning folks away. So, any other questions from our guests today? Yes.
What's the biggest volunteer need?
Our biggest volunteer need, we have lots of volunteer opportunities. You can sign up and serve a meal in our kitchen. You can do it many different ways. You can actually bring the ingredients, prepare it, hang out with us during the day, prepare it, stay and serve it. You can drop the ingredients off and staff will prepare it and cook it for you. Come back and serve it. You can order it. You can just fund the meal. That's probably the biggest, the one thing that everybody loves to do. We do a lot of laundry. So in this building, we have guest laundry, which is nowhere else in Northern Kentucky. You're going to find self-service laundry for guests that's free. So they have the units as part of the daytime shower and laundry program. And we have house laundry. So we do a lot of house laundry as well because we're turning the linens over quite a bit. Other things, we need back office help. You know, we always are looking for graphic designers to help with things and images, all kind of stuff. If you have an idea, we'll make it work. We had Saints, one of the leadership groups in, they power washed our showers, power washed the courtyard. They cleaned all the beds and the mattresses. So there's a lot that we do because we really want to keep the building clean and healthy. Awesome. So do you guys want a tour? You want to take a walk around and tour? We can divide you up. The back table can go with, let's see, how are we going to do this? These 3 tables will go with Desiree. Desiree, you want to raise your hand? And you'll go back and meet and start with her. These 2 tables right here can go with, these 2 tables can go with Malia. Julie.
They come in on a weekly or monthly basis, depending on, thank you.
Live like. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that should be good. Okay. But we try to keep everything updated so that even when I'm not here in the evenings or on the weekends, that they can still see what partners are coming in. I have a heavy focus on Medicaid and food stamps, trying to get them, you know, the very base benefits that we can as fast as possible. We also have lockers behind us, which we love because this keeps food out of our rooms. Like I said, food stamps are a huge commodity. So we don't want them to be able to use their benefit and then immediately have to throw it away. So we do allow them access out here.
We do not store belongings during the day for folks. This is another big issue in our community. We do not have the space to allow individuals to leave items behind, whether they visit the daytime nav center or the emergency shelter. When we go back and see the work program rooms, they do get to leave their belongings while they're in the program.
Yeah, and that makes it easier. You know, when you're working, you don't want to be carrying a bunch of stuff around. We've got water fountains. The other thing that I love pointing out is these over here. So these are charging stations. So again, for daytime nav or when they're in here for the overnight shelter, they're allowed to put their phone or vape or whatever they need to on a charge and securely lock it. It also helps staff out too when we forget our cords. But it's kind of one of those revolutionary technology things I think everybody just loves. And then behind me, we have the healthcare clinic that we talked about. You guys can come take a peek. What I noticed and what I love when they were setting this up, they do run it like a clinic, like a pharmacy. We have about every over-the-counter medicine that you could imagine in here in the cabinets, and they're able to hand those out directly to our guests. So it's not like, oh, well, you need Pepto-Bismol, but have fun getting it from Walgreens. it's able to be handed to them. I know that we've caught a case of gangrene. I think we caught somebody in hypertension levels before a heart attack. In those severe cases, we're able to get them to the proper medical treatment, like the hospital or something, and not let the problem get worse.
Yeah, we had a throat obstruction that required immediate surgery. We had high blood pressure that required intensive ICU care.
Yep.
It is one thing when you have an attending who's meeting the ambulance at the door saying do X, Y, Z versus the staff saying, hey, we need to transport this person off. The students in UK College of Medicine and the physicians, all of them can write a script, and we fund Rui. We have a spend down account at Rui Pharmacy. So if someone does not have the money to get a script or has no money or doesn't have insurance, we will fund the first 30 days of that script to connect them to services. So that is a really big bonus. The other thing the UK College of Medicine, the physicians can do is they can actually hand out front line. So if you need an antibiotic today, they can do one dose that night and then the script gets filled the next day. So this is a very holistic and thoughtful approach. The students are also learning clinic inventory and all that. Everything is funded through grants that we have right now for this program.
I didn't hear about the scheduled medicine. We keep the high schedule of the dangerous medicine off campus.
We do not hand out any class, any narcotics or anything like that. It is all low level antibiotics. So the guests know that, so they are not drug seeking here. I didn't have it at Scott Street. And the other thing I will say, this is not designed to replace primary care. This is about urgent care at night when someone's in the building, to help them where they may have spent all day working. Like the guy with the gangrene, he was a Hispanic gentleman who was working and started limping. And when they convinced him to go in the clinic, he had a toe that was so bad, yet it required an amputation. And so we were able to allow him to stay here while he recovered and do his check-ins and stuff like that. But this is really about urgent care. And then if they need additional services, we're going to refer to Health Point, to St. Elizabeth, those places.
All right, onward. We have our courtyard to our right. Kim mentioned this. This was a blessing because we would have to go out and personally monitor our guests about once an hour to smoke a cigarette. Now we don't. They can just go smoke. We don't typically have very many problems out here, and the guests are allowed to enjoy the weather when it's nice. On the other side of us, we have the laundry room. This is our house laundry. So coming from Scott Street, we had one washer and one industrial sized dryer. During overnight shelter, especially in the winter when we were at Mother of God, we were washing like 100 beds worth of blankets. Not so many people that we sheltered, but the amount of blankets was like triple that. So just washing constantly. This has been so much nicer. We can get into a routine. We can get all the beds washed every night, and it not interfere with our laundry being done. In this hallway, this is what we call the women's hallway. This is where our work program used to be. We got cleaning stuff in here. So this is pretty much what a typical room will look like. This is just the biggest out of every one in the facility. Is that Billy? Hey, Billy. Billy's our janitor. He's amazing. Smells good in here too, don't it? So this, like I said, has been the work program for the past few months. We're about to switch it back into the women's room. So we are just doing emergency shelter in here. What we'll have is just women, all the lockers coordinate with the beds that they're by, or they should try to do as best as possible. You'll see in our 8-person rooms, it's a little bit more cookie cutter. But we do prefer to have all the women. And like I said, when we switch to work program in the summer, it's nice to also have them all in one room. Now with the work program, and you'll notice this when we go to the other side, there's a lot more stuff in the rooms. They are allowed to keep their belongings in their lockers while they work. We do allow them a few more comforts, like they can bring in a comforter and stuff like that. I think we still say no to pillows. But it is a little bit more lived in and homey looking. But this is where we'll throw all the women, and honestly, the staff is so excited to have women back in. We shower and laundry with them. Yeah.
What about the cameras? Is that okay?
Yes, the cameras are in the bedrooms, not in the bathrooms, obviously. They are all aware, and we just, keep the right, just for security and safety. And if something goes missing or an altercation breaks out, somebody has a medical emergency, we can go review that footage. And it's come into handy with police reports and stuff like that too. So it's definitely just a all encompassing, but the bathrooms are private, and if they need to get undressed, that's where they should be going. And then I'll tell you now, we have our women's bathroom. The men's bathrooms are so much bigger. Our women's is condensed the shower and bathrooms into one. A key thing to note though is the walls and the floor. It's all this really nice material. So we're able to spray bleach everywhere and take it down with a wet mop. And it's so much easier to sanitize, but also that big gap between having the split old bathrooms of this old doctor's office and the one accessible by handicap shower in the back closet is such an upgrade. Our guests absolutely love it. And it's just such a joy to be able to send somebody back to the shower and know they're going to be able to get a comfortable shower. So we're probably going to be passing the other group on the way to the other hallway. We can cut through this laundry room here, okay? Thank you.
Not just for smokers, if you don't have to. We'll let them pass and we'll go.
We're going to sneak through. Is that okay? All right. Yes. All right.
Relatively new.
Yes. Yes. I think we brought one over from Scott. We should be in here. Okay. So this is the men's bathroom. This is the material I was telling you about. The women's is just more compact with 2 stalls and 2 showers in that room. Unfortunately, the guys don't get toilet doors. I kind of feel bad for them every time I'm in here, which is not frequently, but it's still a clean location that they can come in. Definitely better than the 2 stalls that we did have. There's not really very much exciting in here. We'll continue. Yeah, it does. Billy does an amazing job. We'll continue on down the hallway. We'll poke into one. We'll poke into one of the bedrooms. All right. So this is what an average bedroom looks like. This is pretty much the rest of them. Now the two that are all the way in the back are the work program. But they're set up just like this. So each of our usual rooms is 8 beds with their lockers right by them. These beds, we expect them, even if, they stay one night and don't stay the next night. Our laundry changing is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The other days of the week, they're expected to make the beds and at least make them look nice. No trash anywhere, no left objects, stuff like that. Just very basic housekeeping. One thing that I love is each bed in this entire building has one of these outlets on it. You'll notice it has 2 plugs and 2 USB ports, which means they can charge up to 4 things every single night. So if they're in the building from 6 p.m. to 9 a.m., they have access to charging everything that they need on a daily basis. And then they can also lock their stuff in their lockers while they're here for the night. They have to take it with them when they go. So, but have any of you been into the Scott building? Okay. So not very many, but so you guys can attest, it was such a night and day difference. The building that we had before was just half of this, a fraction. And I think when I started last December, we were only able to hold 20 or 24 people because of the COVID restrictions. The ceilings weren't high enough. This is why we're allowed to have the double beds in here now, even with COVID. Unfortunately, we all are still masking, vaxxed or not. Just because of the transient community that we work with, the chances of us getting a disease is a lot higher. So we're not out of the red in Kentucky yet. But it's cleaner, it's bigger, it's so much nicer. Just the amenities that they have, and it's just very bare minimum, like having a proper water fountain, having proper bathrooms, having proper laundry. But it's a blessing, and it creates that stability that she was talking about to let people launch pad into their next big thing. So I'll take you back. We'll poke into the showers, and then we'll poke into one of the work program rooms, and then we'll head back towards the kitchen. This is the shower. If everybody wants to take a look, the one ADA shower is on the right there, so it's a lot bigger. Oh my, isn't it? In that back storage closet. So now people, even with handicaps, can come in and easily shower, even if they can't stay with us due to whatever medical issues they have, they can still get into a shower. Yeah. Yeah, we do towels, twin sheets, anything bigger than that we can't typically use. But yeah, towels and washcloths is always a huge need. All right, I'm gonna go poke in here Hopefully we don't have too many people sleeping right now. We got one of my guys that I've been working with. He's gotten a job and he works third shift. So he's in there sleeping. But if you guys wanted to take a quick look, just see how they have stuff. Their stuff is obviously in the lockers, locked up. It is a little bit more homey, like I mentioned, a little bit more, you know. He looked at me and I was like, shh. All right, and then we'll head back towards the kitchen. All the other room, we got a painter. He's the one that just started past us, so I'm gonna let him work. But they're pretty much all like this one. It's not anything too exciting. On this side, we do have our guest laundry, so they're able to come in during the day and do this. Our one rule is that they hadn't stayed the night before. They have the time to do it the night before. Washers are on the left, and then we also have these automatic buttons, so people don't have to worry about dispensing their own laundry detergent. It just goes straight in for them. Makes it easier. Yeah. I will point this out. She mentioned that we have all of the managed care options come in. So we have partners with Anthem and Humana, Passport, all of them. Anthem did give us a grant this past year though. So they paid for this cabinet. And then they also paid for about 10,000, I think, for us to constantly order these personal travel size. Carrying big bottles around just isn't feasible. But then they also need stuff that we might not necessarily get, like hair brushes, you know, toothpaste, stuff like that. You keep nail clippers, chapstick. Yeah, but they pay for all that, so that is wonderful. They're quick. I get so excited about this building. This is, oh wait. This is also a huge difference from our old. We had one fridge, one counter, and some cabinets and a sink. And now we have a fully certified kitchen that we can cook out of. Before it was like catering the homeless shelter every single night for dinner. Now we can do it here. Takes a little bit of stress off. We have a hot box. We have those convention ovens that we use. We also have hot plates with propane, which is how we boil most of our stuff and cook it like that. But it's just amazing to not have to worry about donors every night. We have our pantry here on the right, and then we're about to go into the Oasis. So sweet. This is Kim's favorite spot. This is pretty much all of our favorite spots. This is the Oasis. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the terms like compassion fatigue or secondary trauma. That is heavily what we do. So even like a 30-minute break to be able to eat lunch and not have somebody standing over you and asking for multiple things. You never know what request somebody's going to come up with, but it's just nice to have this space where we can come in peace and get that 30-minute mental break and be able to go back out and fully be able to serve people. We do have like a nice fridge, and we do have lockers for ourselves now. And it's just such an improvement. We didn't have any of these little things. At Scott, we pretty much ate dinner in front of everybody, which doesn't make you feel good either. And, you know, keeping your bag hidden or leaving it in the car was also the go-to. So since last December. Yeah. And then, so I started as a second shift advocate. So I was in the thick of it, doing intake every night, doing showers, doing food. When overnight shelter happened, I was working a lot of 16s to do second and third to make sure that that church stayed open so that nobody was outside below freezing. And then in March, I actually got promoted into the daytime navigation specialist position. So I am the one that coordinates all the community partners coming in. And then I meet with clients one-on-one to identify what their basic needs are. Step one, and getting them connected to the outside partners that are going to make the most sense. If they have mental health, they probably need Northkey. If they're just trying to re-enter, you know, the workforce, something like LLC or going straight to an employment agency might be better. If they have heavy drug use, somebody asked about this. Me and Desiree both tag team. We try to get them into a recovery program if they're willing to go. Sometimes people are sober and they're just struggling, and getting into a sober living and getting back into meetings is pretty much the baseline of care. Sometimes it is going to be a full 3-month recovery somewhere. But we do try to tackle that as individual situations and work. I mean, even aside from abuse, substance abuse, getting them connected to the people that are actually going to help, not just, well, here's a list of 6 different agencies, call around and tell somebody. No, we try not to do that. So I meet with them personally to get them what they actually need. Yeah. And if we'll continue on, this office or this hallway is kind of boring until we get to the very end, and then that's the donation room. But this is our admin office or hallway. You're good. Okay. It's Miss Kim's office. Hi, Rustlin. This is our office. Do you think this is our actually really exciting admin hallway because we get to see Rustlin. You're welcome. Shelly is our data analyst. Alan is our volunteer coordinator. Both of these people are very important to us. And we got to the end of the hallway. All right. So this, you guys are hiding back here. So the special thing I will say about this right up front is this window. Before, on second shift, we would have to go around to all 25 people and ask what they needed, what sizes they needed, if they needed a shower. Then we would go to the room, pick out that one person's thing, run it back, and do that 24 more times. Now, from a certain designated time, they can come up to the window every night and get what they need. We try to keep it at 1 outfit per week, but you know, we might sneak somebody's socks in extra time. It makes it a lot easier for us, though, on this side to have them there, not have them able to overstep boundaries or anything, but then we go shopping for them. So we have it set up. We got women down there, which is expanding right now for winter to be set up. And then we have the men's and some socks, underwear, extras. We try to keep stuff for outreach. We try to keep hand warmers and cold packs for winter time. And then we also have hygiene over here. We have a rack for clothes or for coats, I'm sorry, that'll probably be overfilled here in a couple weeks. And we also have a rack for shoes. We really do try to completely encompass their needs and get it for them when we can. So anything that we get in that we can't use, we just donate to other agencies in the area. But yeah, thank you guys for listening to me. Any questions? No? All right, well then we'll sneak back through the community partner room here and I'll let you guys connect with everybody else. I will say our community partner rooms are also great, not just for community partners, but anytime a guest needs to make a phone call, I can set them up privately in here. They can do their phone authorization for stamps, or they can call insurance, they can call a doctor, whatever they need. So it's really nice. Yeah, of course. Thank you. Haven't gotten nervous about a tour in a while, so thanks for that. Of course. Thank you. Yeah, I do. Yeah, let me grab one for you.